What's going on there, everybody? For the last story of the day, now I haven't really dove into this too much because really, when it comes to transgender people, I say to each their own, no worries. Say what you want to say, that's cool. Do what you want to do, that's cool. But where we have the problem is where they try to force transgenderisms and whatnot upon everybody. That's where we have a problem. You know, it is your right to be whatever you want to be as long as you are not bothering anybody else or hurting anybody else. But when you start trying to force people to call people certain things that scientifically doesn't make sense, you try to get laws made to strictly protect one class of people. Yeah, and stuff like that. I don't like that. That's where there's a gray area that really needs to be addressed. But let's get into the story. Twitter reverses ban on free speech activists after spat with trans activists. Now I gotta give it to Twitter. Just off the headline, that is very different from how we've seen Twitter respond to most things. So, kudos. Just a little bit. On Monday, Twitter dropped its permanent suspension on Lindsay Shepherd, a Canadian free speech activist who had insulted Jonathan Yaniv, a transgender activist who goes by Jessica, and forces women's waxing studios to wax his private parts, which is disgusting in and of itself. You cannot force anybody to touch you, especially on your privates. If they are a woman, do not expect them to want to do that. They're used to dealing with their own sex, women. You come in there and you got a cock and balls down there. I don't expect them to want to do that. And no one should be able to force them to do that. That's insane. Ay, ay, ay. That is insane. At least one woman had accused him of sexually harassing her by asking intimate questions and making lewd statements in an instant messenger. Yeah, if you go through this guy's social media accounts, I don't even think he's a real transgender. I think he's a freak. Just a straight up freak. Yaniv had engaged in disgusting anatomical insults against Shepherd, mocking her for being loose after having a child, even though she had a C-section. He also mocked her for a reproductive anomaly. Finally responding, she said, "At least I have a uterus, you ugly fat man," or "you fat ugly man." She apologized, but Twitter banned her anyways. Why? So you'll let this transgender person sit here and mock and ridicule a lady, but if the lady says anything back, she's the one at fault? That's full retard. That is full retard. On Monday, Shepherd tweeted, "I'm back," with a screenshot announcing an end to the ban. After further review, we have unsuspended your account as it does not appear to be in violation of Twitter rules. The social media company's message read. So what was the ban for in the first place? That's what I want to know. Why'd you ban her in the first place? Why is Twitter so anti-free speech? Probably because they're leftists and they're authoritarians. They're on the verge of being totalitarians. Twitter's reversal of this suspension raises the question of whether or not the company will reconsider the ban on feminist journalist Meghan Murphy, who was also banned after confrontation with Yaniv. Unlike Shepherd, Murphy had not insulted Yaniv. She had merely identified him as a man who forced Canadian waxing studios to give Brazilian waxes to a man's private parts. This provocateur had approached many waxing studios, and when they refused him, he would threaten to file a human rights complaint against them. He used this threat to extort money. First off, it is not a human right to get a Brazilian wax. I am sorry. What is it with these activists thinking everything is a human right? We need to really think about that. What constitutes a human right? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I don't know. Because what I think are human rights, the left, they think there's about 4,000 things to add to that list. I don't get them. They don't make any sense. The provocateur's exploits were partially kept secret by a publication ban on his name. A ban lifted in response to a complaint from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, where Shepard works as a free speech fellow. After the ban was lifted, news broke that Yaniv had approached many women with the questions about teenage girls and tampons in women's restrooms. In one case, he chats with a 14-year-old girl crossed into sexual harassment, according to an official complaint. Yaniv is also notorious for requesting a permit for an LGBT topless swim event with kids as young as 12, with parents specifically excluded. What I get from this guy, he's a predator. He is a manipulative predator that is going under the title of being a transgender for his predation on people. This guy is sick, and his supporters are sick. They always jump to conclusions before they find any of the backstory on a person. All they read is transgender person refused services. They don't look at why. They don't dive into anything. They just say, oh, I'm outraged, because that's the age we live in, the age of outrage. Speaking with PJ Media last week, Murphy condemned Twitter's actions in protecting Yaniv. She sued Twitter after the social media platform banned her. Twitter is in the business of protecting predators and silencing women who try to hold those predators accountable, she told PJ Media. Twitter should be humiliated. They allowed this predatory man to have me permanently suspended from Twitter just for acknowledging that he was the one responsible. Murphy has a uniquely strong case against Twitter, since Yaniv himself has bragged about getting her booted from the platform. This is the person who has been harassing #Megan Murphy, admitting at a city council meeting to being responsible for her Twitter ban and asking that she be prosecuted for hate crimes. Benjamin Boyce. We got to get a handle on this type of stuff, people. Reality needs to come back. Because all you activists out there, all you left activists and trans activists and stuff, get on message. Get on the actual message. You know? Stop trying to force people to say, in y'all's opinion, the correct pronouns and all that. Okay? Most of the world's population really doesn't care at all. Yeah, we think you should have equal rights, blah, 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 blah. That's fine. You should. Everyone should have equal rights. But when you start infringing on other people's free speech and stuff like that, and their right not to touch your personal body, then we got a problem. We got a big problem. Even transgender activists have attacked this provocateur. This person is the walking, talking, living, breathing embodiment of what people fear when it comes to trans people, noted transgender YouTube star Blair White. Thank you, Blair White. Kudos to Blair White. Shout out to Blair White. Because, I don't know who this person is. I don't know if they're a man or a woman. I don't know what they want to be or what they think they are. But whoever you are, kudos to you. And that was awesome. Although most people who struggle with gender dysphoria, which is a mental condition, the persistent identification with the gender opposite to their biology, are not provocateurs and alleged predators like Yaniv, transgender activism opens the door to bad actors like him abusing transgender protections, which I also agree with. We saw this in the kind of the mid to late 80s through the 90s where the gays were trying to fight for more rights, which I fully support. To me, everyone should be equal for the most part. Sure, there are certain things when it comes to this type of stuff, there are limitations, because we do have to, even trans people acknowledge that there are some people that use that as just kind of like a cover for they can fulfill their sick fantasy type things. And that's the problem. That's a big problem that we have with the trans community, because there are these predators, and even other trans acknowledge this. And I feel really bad for the more normal trans people. I just feel bad for them because of people like this guy. It's not possible to change from man into a woman. The whole idea is based on a lie and a delusion. Nobody can prove that there is a difference between a trans woman and a man. What's changed? You've declared that something is different, Murphy told PJ Media. If any man can identify as a woman, what's stopping any man from abusing a woman in a woman's space? Very good point. I don't think that most people are identifying as transgender for this purpose, but it's obviously a very real possibility, she added. That is a good point. That's the point I was just trying to make. I do not put a blanket on anybody. Okay? Let's get that out, put that out there right now. I would never in my life sit there and put a blanket to all trans people are like this guy. Not at all. I've met many trans people. I love talking with people that I don't generally agree with, because we come usually to an agreement. We'll have a really good discussion and come to some type of mutual agreement where we both understand each other, And like she said, this is a big problem, because there are predators that are using transgenderism as their little protective cloak. And sadly, it works a lot because our system's so screwed up. Sorry about that little bit of a lag there. I had a very important call from one of my British mates come through. But back to the story. She goes on to say, I don't think that most people are identifying as transgender for this purpose, but it's obviously a very real possibility, she added. If Democrats succeed in passing legislation like the Equality Act, which opens women's spaces to biological men who identify as women, they will be opening the door to provocateurs like Yaniv, and worse, which is, I think, every mother and father's fear. Grown women generally can handle themselves, but kids can't. Teenagers, they can't defend themselves if something, or if one of these people that say they're trans but might not be actually trans and might be a predator, they can't defend themselves. So it's sketchy. It's really sketchy. If Democrats succeed in passing legislation like the Equality Act, which opens women's spaces to biological men who identify as women, they will be opening the door to provocateurs like Yanni and worse. Meghan Murphy and Lindsay Shepherd should not be silenced for warning about him. After being allowed back on Twitter, Shepherd immediately wondered whether or not the company would restore Meghan Murphy's account. Thanks everyone for keeping the pressure on. Wonder if they will restore Meghan Murphy, she tweeted. Yeah, just said that. Indeed, Twitter should restore Meghan Murphy's account. It never should have been banned in the first place. Yeah, so they bring up very good points. They bring up points that most people that aren't just completely blinded through activism see, because this is one of the biggest problems with the whole bathroom debate and stuff like that. It's like, where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? Because it's impossible to prove someone is truly a transgender or whether they're a predator. You know, that's just something that's impossible to prove. Regardless, it's a sticky situation. I do not think there should be any laws put forth or anything like that until we can address these situations and come up with a satisfying answer. Which doesn't seem like that'll happen in these days in the political world, because they just don't get along. The Democrats and Republicans, they don't get along at all. And a lot of times the Democrats, they pander so bad. They pander so bad that I feel they could make a decision that would affect all of us to the negative, just for the sheer fact that they might get some votes out of it. It's a really sketchy situation no matter how you look at it, and there needs to be a lot of discussion about it. But what I can say is they should stop. Every group of people should stop trying to attack people for their freedom of speech. Stop banning people or trying to get people banned for expressing their opinions on certain matters, whether you like them or not. You know, I don't like half of the stuff I see on Twitter or any of these sites. Usually I don't agree with anybody. I have my own opinion. And there's nothing wrong with having your own opinion. And if I want to voice my opinion, or if these women want to voice their opinion, who is anybody to say they can't? And by Twitter banning them in the first place, just further proof that Twitter doesn't care about freedoms. They don't care about your rights. They don't care about none of that. All they care about is power. They love the power that they can silence you from social media in a heartbeat. And what does that do? It helps people like this person, Jessica. Helps people like them. And it further emboldens them to just be even more radical. I don't know. I'd love to hear your opinions on this matter, because this is one of those strange matters, you know. It's definitely not a normal situation, and it's confusing. But we'll see what happens. As always, like, share, subscribe. I will catch you on the flip side.